Hello you lovely lot, my name is Max, welcome back to my YouTube channel and another Nottingham Forest match preview where today we are detailing Forest's upcoming Monday night fixture against Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. If you're new around these parts, these videos go as following. We start with an initial discussion giving some context to our opposition at the moment, followed by some deep diving into the stats and key players for the opposition, followed by a tactical breakdown of what we can expect on the day, and then my final score predictions for the match. So if you do enjoy that kind of stuff, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single match preview or the other Forest content we've got coming up in the next few weeks. And also be sure to check out my TikTok. I upload fairly regularly over there doing Forest content and wider Premier League and football content. And with that being said, let's start talking about Aston Villa. So as we usually do, we're going to start with some context for Aston Villa and how their season this year and previously have gone under Steven Gerrard. And I've got to say it was probably a bit of a disappointing campaign last time out for Aston Villa, finishing 14th in the Premier League after finishing 11th the season before under Dean Smith, although he would eventually be sacked halfway through last campaign, eventually going to Norwich, replaced by Steven Gerrard, Liverpool legend, title winner with Rangers the season before, and he would steady the ship, although things haven't really progressed this season. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves though, so let's start talking about the transfer window just gone. £30 million spent on Diego Carlos, £20 million on former Liverpool midfielder Felipe Coutinho from Barcelona, and around £15 million on Wolves defender Leander Dendoncker. A fair chunk of change spent by the Villa board this summer. But in terms of the transfers that impressed me the most from Villa this summer, it would actually be a free transfer of Boubacar Kamara from Marseille, arriving from the French Giants. A player who was actually quite heavily courted by Manchester United earlier in the summer and would eventually come into the club on a free, like I say, and make a really good impact. Despite being injured in a recent game against Southampton, I do think he's probably been one of their best players this season, and on a free, looking like a really good pickup from Gerrard's men. I think long term he'd be a really good signing in that midfield. And in general, Villa have done a really good job of keeping the majority of their squad together, keeping a really good sense of squad continuity, although there would be one major departure this summer. It wasn't actually on the playing side, it was actually on the coaching side. Michael Beale, long-time assistant coach to Steven Gerrard, especially back in Rangers, departed to take a first-team coaching role at QPR, and he's actually doing a pretty good job down there at the moment. And it does feel like since his departure in the summer, the wheels have slightly come off for Gerrard and Aston Villa, and the identity of the side seems to be a bit more murky. That being said though, they've made an astute appointment bringing in Neil Critchley from Blackpool as his new assistant manager, and it's been proven with Everton and Frank Lampard that if you give him a bit of time to get his ideas into the squad, there is a sense there that there could be a decent mid-table Premier League side under Steven Gerrard, and he is of course a new manager learning his craft, so it is worth giving them the time, I think, in the long run. With that being said though, let's shift things over to the stats and start talking about some of the key personnel and where it's not really gone too well for Villa this season in front of goal. It could be argued that Villa's biggest problems as a team is scoring goals. They've only netted 6 times in the Premier League this season, the 3rd worst record in the division at the time of recording, and only generate the 4th least chances in the Premier League and are the 3rd worst in terms of generating chances of quality on expected goals. The obvious answer to this is extracting the quality they have in their attacking players and getting the most out of them. They have some really talented attackers, Buendia, Watkins, Ings, Coutinho. They've got players in there who can create chances, who can score goals, who can finish. It's just finding a system that gets the best out of them, and I don't personally think the system that they're playing at the moment really does that at the moment under Steven Gerrard. When we flip things over and take a look at their defence, it's actually pretty good reading. Aston Villa's defence historically has been pretty good, but especially this season has been very, very solid heading through into the 9th game week. They have the 4th best defensive record on goals conceded, joint 4th best in the Premier League, concede the 7th least shots per 90 minutes, and have the 6th lowest expected goals against tally over the course of the campaign. And what this suggests is, despite the injuries in their backline, particularly to Diego Carlos, who probably going to be out for most of the season, they have a really solid spine to this team, and it is about Gerrard finding the balance between that solid defence that they've got, a really good spine to the team, and then getting the most out of the players in the final third and finding a really good balance between the two. Either way, with Emiliano Martinez in goal, they do have a really solid shot-stopping presence between the sticks for them at the moment. Despite a slight dip last season, he seems to have gone up back to where he sort of was during his first season at Aston Villa, having around a league average save percentage and looking like one of the more solid shot stoppers in the Premier League at the moment, and of course has buckets of Premier League experience with Arsenal and now with Aston Villa, looking like a really solid keeper, and that's a really good thing to build upon as the team progresses under Gerrard. Another player that's really impressed me is former Red Matty Cash, of course coming back to the City ground for the first time since leaving us for Villa 3 years ago, coming back with around 100 Premier League appearances and now a fully fledged Polish international. And what he's done is transformed and developed into a really defensively solid right back of Premier League quality who could potentially push up into a European contention club, competing around 5 tackles and interceptions per 90 minutes and being a really good presence in the final third, ranking pretty highly amongst European fullbacks for touches in the box and progressive passes received, suggesting he gets into really good advanced positions. My main issue with Cash as a player, specifically in this Villa system, is he doesn't offer a lot on the ball in terms of progression, whether that's carrying the ball or passing the ball forward. And I do think when he is the main wide outlet on the right hand side for Villa, that can potentially shoestring them in terms of what they can actually do in terms of getting the ball down the right hand side. And it puts a lot of pressure on Luca Dean on the other side, obviously Matty Target last season, on getting the ball down their side in order to create chances. Although very defensively solid and actually a decent threat in the final third, it's his build up and his ability to progress play that really worries me. Despite these shortcomings though, Matty Cash has developed from a really promising midfielder or winger at Forest, we were never really sure what his best position was, to a really good and defensively solid right back of Premier League quality who could potentially push on to play for a European team in the future, and is of course a fully capped Polish international. And as a Forest fan, I'm always really keen to see him play for Villa, and watching his development and how he's developed over the last 18 months, 2 years has been really fun, and I'm really happy for him. So overall, Villa are a defensively very solid team, don't concede a lot of shots, don't concede a lot of goals, who need to maximise the talent they've got in the final third, maybe a shift in system or approach to how they're going to play. And with that being said, let's start talking about the tactics, what I've identified and how they play, and potentially the ways in which Forest could exploit this. So historically, Steven Gerrard, both at Rangers and at Aston Villa, has preferred to play a variation of a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 in which the wingers play as inside forwards and the width comes from the fullbacks. Very similar to Liverpool, of course, the club where he made his name, is obviously a legend, but with a greater sense of rigidity and structure rather than being more free-flowing like Klopp plays. The idea is to congest central positions with players who are greater threats in the final third. Your Watkins, Buendias, Ings, Coutinho's, players like that, inside forward kind of players, get lots of width from the fullbacks who are going to stretch the opposition as much as possible. Supplementary runs from the midfield three. McGinn is able to come into the final third and make those late runs, same as Jacob Ramsey, but in general looking like a solid presence behind the ball. And then 2 split centre-backs who can recycle possession, comfortable enough on the ball to play out from the back. Certainly Konsa looks decent on the ball. Tyrone Mings is okay, but not the best. Able to play the ball around, and it means that they've always got these players in the 5 zones of the pitch that we've discussed in pretty much detail in other videos in the past. The wide areas, the half space, and the central areas, particularly congesting those central areas. So as you can see, the defensive shape is pretty close to a 4-2-3-1 in which they look to be compact both vertically and horizontally and look to engage in a defensive press. I'm going to flash up on screen the thirds of the pitch under both Dean Smith and under the first few games of Steven Gerrard, and what you'll notice is there's been a shift from a higher press under Dean Smith, where they press higher up the pitch looking for high turnovers, to a more defensive press under Steven Gerrard, where pressures tend to be in the midfield third and in the defensive third, looking to regain possession and then build out from the back. Now, a defensive press does add more structure to your team. It allows you to reset play once you've regained possession and allows you to then build out from the back at your own pace. The issue with this, and this is a big issue with Villa in particular, is it can make you quite a slow and plodding team. If we look at things like direct attack speed, Villa are one of the lowest ranking teams in the Premier League. They're very slow at getting the ball from back to front in terms of chance creation. And when you compile that with the fact that they don't have a lot of threat from wide positions, it just sort of slowly funnels the ball into central areas where they just sort of get stifled and don't get the opportunity to create those high quality chances that we associate with really good attacking teams. And what this will do is allow the opposition to get back into their defensive shape. It prevents Aston Villa from breaking out with too much pace because they've already recycled the ball along the back line. Let's say this back 5 that we've got on the board here, they could get back into a really good defensive shape by the time they recycle play, reset their positions and look to get forward. And that is a bigger, wider issue at Aston Villa at the moment. My personal recommendation would be to push the back line up a little bit more, look to engage in the midfield a little bit more. They don't have, other than Boubacar Kamara obviously who's injured, a naturally combative defensive midfielder in that position. If they were to get someone like that who can win the ball back in the midfield third and start attacks a lot quicker, because they clearly aren't set to be playing a high press like they were under Dean Smith, then maybe they could look at creating better opportunities, because they're going to have disrupted the patterns of play of the opposition better, and they're not going to be able to get back in that defensive shape as quick as they would do than winning the ball back in the defensive third, where they've then got the time to reset and then play out from the back. I mentioned in my video last week where I was talking about the system under Steve Cooper that we needed to be a lot more compact. In recent games, there's just been too much space. The team in red is Forest, by the way, where players are able to pick the ball up in these pockets of space. They're able to pick it up in front of their back line and distribute from deep. We saw that with Tielemans picking the ball up from deep. We saw that with Maddison coming inside and playing in the half space, dropping between the lines. We need to be a team that looks to be a lot more compact. If we're going to be sitting behind the ball and counter-attacking, that means compressing the space both vertically and horizontally. As I've mentioned earlier in this video, Villa are quite a slow team at building out from the back. They have quite a low attacking speed or direct attacking speed. And I think this would really suit the game that we were playing last season, where we were looking for high turnovers and forcing mistakes from the opposition. I certainly feel like this is the kind of game where we need to be a bit braver in the press, particularly against Leicester. We were so passive. Our attacking players had no intention on looking to press the opposition or cut passing lanes, and it allowed defenders to step out on the ball and distribute from deep. We need to be much more aggressive, much more in their faces, and look to win the ball back, whilst also keeping the compact space, push the back line up, keep the compactness, and prevent the team from playing through us. My final suggestion is maybe a bit of a controversial one. I would say we should actually move back to the three at the back for this specific game. I think Villa really lack quality in wide positions, and I think it would be a really good opportunity to get Nico Williams and Renan Lodi attacking aggressively down the wide areas, and I think we'll get the most out of this playing a three at the back system. Whilst I think long term playing four at the back with a flat back four is probably a better suggestion, a lot more solid, I think in this game specifically it might actually suit having the aggressive width that we have from the fullbacks, as long as they're disciplined enough to close down space defensively and look to be coming inside and look to be compact as possible when we're off the ball. In terms of scoreline, I think I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for Forest on the day. I know we're in really bad form at the moment, but so are Aston Villa, and I think with Steve Cooper signing his new contract this week, looks like Dane Murphy's going to be staying as well. It's a really good opportunity to whip up some of that feel-good feeling that we had at the back end of last season, especially after we got promoted to the Premier League. And I do think Steve Cooper will have been working on the training ground. He will have seen the issues, the big issues, the lack of compactness and the amount of space that Leicester were able to pick up last Monday, and I think he'll look to address them. He's a smart enough coach to know when he's made mistakes, and I do think he's made mistakes recently, but again, I think he's smart enough to learn from them and pick up, and hopefully start picking up some form as we head towards the World Cup, because it's a really good opportunity. We've got some interesting fixtures coming up to hopefully pick up some points and not be in the relegation zone come Christmas. Of course, let me know what you think your predictions are going to be for the scoreline on the day of Monday Night Football. Like I said, I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for Forest. I've said a win for the last few games. I've got to get it right eventually. Other than that as well, though, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel whilst you're down there as well. It'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. Be sure to check out my TikTok as well. And if you go into the game, enjoy the game, Reds. And with that being said, thanks for watching. I will catch you later.